This is CBC Here and Now.
I've brought in cybersecurity experts. We've brought in people who've had experience with outages that could possibly be a cyber attack before, and we're taking their advice.
A healthcare system in crisis. For a fourth day, all non-essential procedures on hold.
We know police are involved, but the province won't say much else.
It's been a pretty gorgeous start to November, that's for sure. Double-digit temperatures, but how long are they going to stick around?
How have the theaters and those that perform in these theaters survived this long pandemic with all of its precautions and capacity rules?
It also dramatically affects what we can afford to pay the people who are on the stage.
Well, we'll talk to some of the theaters in this province and the artists that perform there and find out if they're making any money.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, the healthcare system remains in the dark. There are few answers about the attack on the province's IT systems that forced the healthcare system offline in parts of the province. Now, government is refusing to answer even basic questions about the attack. The reason? Well, it appears they don't want to tip their hand to those responsible. So what are the politicians saying tonight? Here and Now's Peter Cowan tried to get some answers today at the House of Assembly. So Peter, what are they saying?
Well, Carolyn, we basically don't know any more today than we did yesterday about what caused these problems or who caused these problems. Today, the questions from the PCs and the NDP focused on the attack that has crippled many healthcare services, but what they got were just generic answers from government. They wouldn't answer questions like, has there been a ransom demand? Is the pay system for healthcare workers affected? Is the federal government involved? Instead, the government ministers just kept repeating the same talking points. After question period, the health minister explained why they're holding back information.
You know, if I were to go out here and describe what little I know, that might not be appropriate in terms of people who had not our best interests at heart, simply because it tells them stuff they already may not know. But there will be some challenges with the backup, and I think that it will only become apparent what those are once we figure out a little bit more about the nature of the failure and how fast we can start to bring systems back into the daylight, as it were.
Now, the NDP and PCs aren't happy with the lack of answers from government, saying there needs to be more transparency.
Be honest and upfront, answer the questions. I don't think there's any big secretive thing that's going on in there. We're not asking the RCMP here to give us a copy of their investigation or who they're interviewing or any of this stuff. That's a secondary issue. We're asking about our approach to healthcare. The government's approach to healthcare here should be a collaborative one that 40 members of the House of Assembly will support. Once we have a dialogue on what's the best approach forward.
You have to protect our cybersecurity and all that. But like I said, like top of the trees answers or answers to the questions, you know, that's all we're asking for. We just want some clarity and some reassurance to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
So what's the latest on the impact from this attack? Well, we just received word from Western Health that for the rest of the week, they're going to have to cancel a lot of procedures. Their patient record system has been working, but it's now being taken offline as part of the investigation, which means for the rest of the week, hospitals will be dealing with paper only. That means only emergency and urgent surgeries, blood work, and imaging are going to go ahead. More details on what is and isn't happening is available on the Western Health website. But 4 days into this, we're seeing that the impacts from these attacks are now getting worse rather than getting any better. Anthony?
All right, thank you. That's Peter Cowan live in our newsroom. Well, to other news now, the Consumer Advocate says Newfoundland Power has begun negotiations with the Public Utilities Board to increase its profit rate. In a news release, Dennis Brown says the utility wants to increase its rate of return from 8.5% to 9.8%. Do the math for you, that's about a 16% increase. Brown says if that increase is granted, Newfoundland Power would collect an additional $35 million over 3 years in profit. Brown says he's going to oppose the request. He believes the utility's profit rate should be lowered. Instead, he calls the request from Newfoundland Power troubling, coming at a time when the provincial and federal governments are working out a deal on rate mitigation to prevent rates from rising to cover the costs of Muskrat Falls. In a statement, Brown says Newfoundland Power's rate increase application is undermining the rate mitigation process.
Well, there's been a shakeup at Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro today as the process of eliminating the Nalcor brand and reducing duplication continues at the Crown-owned utility. The provincial government announced in June that it would remove the Nalcor brand, which launched in 2007 to develop and manage the province's energy resources. It also oversaw the Muskrat Falls project. It all now falls under the NL Hydro umbrella. The president of NL Hydro announced cuts to the leadership team today, reducing it from 18 positions to 11, which reduces executive pay by 35%, about $2.2 million. Now, those savings include cutting the vehicle allowance and performance bonuses.
It's gone from 18 positions to 11. Obviously, my position and the previous CEO of Nalcor's position, that's one that is officially gone now. But we had 3 terminations today, and we have 3 folks that are being offered positions outside the executive. Obviously, this is a change for everybody impacted today, people taking on some additional duties in the same way that I took on additional duties this summer. I believe that the folks that are going to move forward can do that. And I think that a lot of folks in the organization are ready, willing, and able to take on some few asks here as well to make sure that we are able to continue to function safely and reliably.
Well, Williams says NL Hydro will continue to look for ways to save money and expects to take more measures next year to ensure the corporation is structured properly.
Taking a look at the live look at Trapassi right now. Beautiful sunset after an absolutely gorgeous day today for most of the province. Looking at the west coast as well, Port Peninsula, looking at a beautiful evening right now. Temperatures soared into the 13-degree range for St. John's this afternoon. Cape Race was the warmest, recorded temperature near 15 degrees. You can see those double-digit temperatures being felt across most of Newfoundland as well as southeastern Labrador. Not the case, though, for Lab City, only sitting about 1 degree today, and that is thanks to some cooler air from an area of low pressure and an associated trough. We're seeing some flurries for you. Otherwise, ridge of high pressure edging in, keeping things cool, rather warm and nice for most of the island. And if we zoom out a little bit, you can see all that colder air. It's actually, we're seeing that colder air for the Great Lakes and even some lake effect snow, and that cooler air is eventually going to make its way towards eastern areas of the province eastern areas of Canada as we head through Thursday into Friday. Even the risk of some snow in some places for the province. I'll get into those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a 21-year-old from Marystown has been charged with impaired driving and having open liquor in a vehicle after a fatal crash. The RCMP in Burin says the crash happened in Raccoon in July. Police say William Pico was impaired by alcohol at the time of the crash. A 21-year-old man who was a passenger in the vehicle died at the scene. Well, 2 or 3 men are believed to be involved in a weekend crime spree that spanned from St. John's to Lewisport and possibly back again. It started Friday with a theft at Foodland in Glovertown. The suspects made off in a truck, which was reported stolen the day before in St. John's. Now, they ditched the truck near Gambo and reportedly stole a car. Police say they went on to steal from a Lewisport Shoppers, a Riffs, a grocery store, and from a number of vehicles. Police tried pulling the vehicle over for dangerous driving, but didn't pursue it for risk of public safety. Yesterday, the red Mazda 3 was spotted in Whitburn following a theft from a gas station. It was last seen heading towards St. John's, and anyone who recognizes these individuals or the Mazda 3 is asked to contact police.
Well, police in Harbour Grace want help finding a driver who fled from a hit and run in Carboneer. It happened on Saturday afternoon in the subway parking lot on Columbus Drive. According to police, a gray Toyota pickup struck a 27-year-old woman who was walking across the lot there. The male driver got out of the truck and saw that the woman was injured. He then got back in his vehicle and drove away. The woman was taken to hospital, and police would like to speak with anyone who saw this or may have dash cam video from that incident that happened on Saturday afternoon. Well, for people with diabetes, it can be a life-changing device. A continuous glucose monitor sends a person's glucose levels to their smartphone, but without government help, it's expensive, something that isn't accessible to everyone. Here Now's Meg Roberts has that story.
She's 11.9 out there right now, and that's a little bit high, but I like to have her a little bit high when she's on the ice because I know she's going to drop a little bit.
When Laura Keating's 13-year-old daughter was first diagnosed with diabetes, she was pricking her finger a handful of times a day, even more when playing sports. Now Keating can sit in the stands and monitor Clark's glucose levels from an app on her phone, using a device inserted into Clark's arm that reads her glucose levels every 5 minutes.
Before I had the Dexcom, I would usually have to come off the ice one time every single practice so I could poke my finger to see what my sugars were. I can't really imagine myself living without the Dexcom.
The Keatings say the continuous glucose monitor changed their lives, but the provincial government doesn't publicly fund CGMs and the family doesn't have private insurance, paying $300 out of pocket every month.
It's hard. It's really hard, and I'm really hoping that Newfoundland is going to get coverage. We do without, and we do collect some recycling, and that helps a little bit.
Complications from diabetes has left Krista Stevens blind in one eye, so she does everything she can to prevent further damage. She says the CGM helps. She was given a free device for temporary use by her doctor, but without private insurance, she can't afford it.
I can't erase any of the damage that's already been done, but I can prevent new complications from developing, and I can slow down the progression of the complications that I already have. And the best way to do that is to see what my numbers are all the time.
It's all sent directly to my phone. So
diabetes advocate Mark Buckle's been reaching out to policymakers for years, hoping government will see the value in making these devices accessible to everyone. The Yukon, British Columbia, Quebec, and Saskatchewan all publicly fund glucose monitors. Manitoba does for individuals up to 25, and starting next year, PEI will fund coverage as well.
There's a sense of urgency for this. The longer we wait, the more complications that are going to happen, and the higher their healthcare system costs are going to be.
Experts say staying on top of sugar levels drastically decreases the chance of amputations, heart attacks, stroke, and a number of other health issues. They say less hospital trips and health complications equals less financial stress on the healthcare system.
All of the research and education in the world doesn't help people if they don't have access to the right drugs or devices when they get sick. So access through public plans is essential to ensure that people can get to the devices that have been shown to help them.
The Department of Health and Community Services says it's done a thorough review around CGMs, though it wouldn't share the details. CBC News asked for an interview, but the department declined. In a statement, it did say it is not definitive on whether the benefits provide better clinical outcomes than can be achieved through self-monitoring and traditional methods of diabetes management. It is a costly technology, and with our province's current fiscal situation, there is a need to prioritize investments where there will be clear health impacts. But for the Keatings and people like Krista Stevens, who has already suffered serious health issues as a result of her diabetes, the health impacts are clear.
I know these devices didn't always exist, but they're there now. The technology is there, it's fantastic. But if you don't have access to it, it's not helping anybody.
Meg Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
The House of Assembly has passed a resolution requiring mandatory vaccinations for MHAs. The government has a policy requiring all public servants to be vaccinated, but MHAs were exempt because of parliamentary privilege. The new rule requires all MHAs to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 as of December 17th, unless there's a medical exemption.
Well, the federal government is easing travel restrictions at the end of this month, and it's upping the number of Canadian airports able to accept international flights. 8 airports in 4 provinces are on that list, and that includes St. John's.
Opening these airports to international travel is another step forward in rebuilding and reopening our travel system. I'm pleased that increased vaccination levels have allowed us to safely reopen these additional Canadian airports to international passenger flights.
Well, in addition to St. John's, airports in Waterloo, Hamilton, Regina, Saskatoon, Kelowna, and Victoria will also be reopening to international flights. That all starts on November the 30th.
Well, musicians and actors are back on stage, but COVID-19 health guidelines mean theaters are still at half capacity.
Yeah, and that means a lot less money rolling in for the venues as well as the performers. Here now's Colleen Connors checks in to see how the performing businesses is panning out during the pandemic.
Lighting rehearsal for the drag show at the Rotary Arts Centre in Corner Brook, a smaller theatre in the basement of City Hall that can house 90 plus. During the pandemic, less than 40.
So it's meant certainly more than a 50% reduction in our capacity, and that affects both our bottom line in terms of the box office receipts, and it also dramatically affects what we can afford to pay the people who are on the stage.
Performers used to make up to $1,000 for a show. The centre can only offer a flat rate of $500 now. Smallwood says with government grants, the Arts Centre won't close, but employees still need to get paid. The new vaccination pass has boosted customers' confidence who want to buy tickets for Christmas shows, but there is no room for them. They had hoped the Vax Pass would mean a return to full capacity, but so far that's just not the case. He's hoping the government will change those rules before December.
At the moment, every head has to be 3 feet apart. And so one head can take up 7 seats. And that's a lot of seats for one person. I'm hoping that if they don't allow 100% occupancy, that they will look at what we do and perhaps say, okay, you can leave 1 seat rather than 3.
I would like to see full houses come back to the centres.
1,000 seats here at the Arts and Culture Centre in St. John's, but less than 500 people can take in a show. Aidan Flynn says it's a real challenge to make money right now.
But we've had to tailor off in terms, our marketing campaigns are a little smaller. Some of the operational aspects of it have to be tailored off a little bit.
Bands like The Once will hit this stage and many others soon with their Cross Island Christmas show. The band left some wiggle room in the schedule to add an extra night or cut back, depending on ticket sales. This is the second time they've had to perform their sought-after Christmas show during the pandemic. So how do you guys make any money?
That's a really good question. How do we guys make any money?
Well, we're artists, so we try really hard to figure out how to kind of make a teacher's salary, I guess.
Jokes aside, they are just happy to be back on stage, even if it has to be a more intimate feel. The pandemic has forced the band members into different jobs when they are not on stage.
We're a malleable bunch.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like the last bit of time is like, it's not like we've just been sitting and waiting for shows. Like you've been working in the studio.
Yeah.
I've actually been working with a wonderful kid homeschooling. Just like we've been doing everything that we can to make ends meet, to make sure that we can still do this when the opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
And for Flynn, he says that the Arts and Culture Centres are always in talks with public health about the future and what capacity is going to look like. Now, there's no timeline on when we'll start to see a full house, but the more audience members that are in those seats means the more those artists will get paid. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Pretty nice evening out there tonight. We're looking at some double digits in the forecast for one more day, and then those temperatures will cool down. I'll get into those details when I come back.
Hard to believe it is November 2nd after a day like today. It was just gorgeous out there.
It was warm. It felt like summer, I guess, if you were in the sun, and you know, no wind. It was absolutely beautiful today. Temperatures reaching the double digits.
Amazing.
Yep,
love it.
And still a beautiful evening out there as well. If you're planning on heading out at all tonight, let's take a look at those temperatures. Right now, sitting at about 8 degrees in St. John's. Still at double digits in Bonavista at 10 degrees. And then those single-digit temperatures pretty much across the island, as well as southeastern portions of Labrador. And then hovering around the 0-degree mark right now for Lab City. And that will just going to see those temperatures drop as we head through the evening hours tonight. Now, what we have on the go is an area of high pressure to the south. It's just edging in, allowing that cloud cover to be pretty much non-existent for parts of the island, and then up across Labrador, this low and then a trough extending behind it is sparking some flurry activity, and will continue to do so as we head through the night tonight, with those colder temperatures sticking around as well. So taking a look at the future tracker tonight, there's those flurries I was talking about, and as we head through the night, they're going to continue to sink a little bit further south. Not a whole lot happening across the island, though. We're looking at some increasing cloud through the night for the west coast. Partly cloudy skies, the story tonight. Even some fog patches possible for central and eastern areas of the island. But and then as we get into the early morning hours, we'll start to see that potential for some showers roll through, starting in the southwest, and then eventually heading and spreading further north along the west coast as we head through the day tomorrow. Temperatures tonight, although not a whole lot happening, those clear skies are going to allow those temperatures to dip. Pretty chilly tonight, 1 to 3 degrees, a little bit warmer towards the southwest. Port aux Basques seeing a low near 4 degrees tonight. And then towards central and low-lying areas, you'll likely dip below 0. Those winds will be generally light, except with that area of low pressure to the north. We are seeing some windy conditions up across Labrador, and that will generally continue as we head through the night tonight. Those southwesterlies gusting anywhere from 40 to as much as 70 kilometers per hour. And again, that chance of flurries sticking around for Lab City. Now, as we head through the day tomorrow, it will be generally gray for the western half of the island. You're going to see that chance of showers stick around as well through the day, as well as some flurry activity for the west and northern portion of Labrador tomorrow. You'll see some increasing cloud for the rest of the Big Land, and then maybe even some showers as you get into the evening hours in and around Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Just a slight chance at this point, but still there. And then we start to see that potential for some flurries showing up in the higher elevations on the west coast tomorrow night. Parts of the interior, maybe even Green Bay, White Bay, could see some flurry activity. Shouldn't accumulate too much, but because these cooler temperatures are starting to sink a little bit further south, especially in the early morning hours on Thursday, some of the models are picking up on that potential for snow. Not anticipating that it will accumulate too much. However, it may we may see some slippery surfaces Thursday morning, and then that risk will continue to spread towards central, and then eventually by the time we get into midday Thursday, that should actually end, at least the risk of showers, and we'll see some clearing skies. However, some lingering flurries certainly possible for the west coast on Thursday. Temperatures tomorrow, though, for the east, another beautiful day, maybe a degree or two colder than what we're seeing today, but those winds will be light. 10 degrees for St. John's, plenty of sunshine, a little bit more cloud cover, like I said, as you head towards central, and then the risk of some showers. Grand Falls winds are looking at about 10 degrees. Harbor Breton, same thing under sunshine, and then we'll see those clouds roll in later on in the day. And then evening hours, like I said, you could potentially see a few flurries or at least some wet snow in the mix. For the west coast, temperatures will be in the single digits through the day. Same thing for the northern peninsula. However, some sunshine, at least at some point during the day, will certainly be in play. And then for southeastern Labrador, winds will be another breezy day. 30 to 50 kilometers per hour with those temperatures in the single digits, and then increasing cloud pretty much for the rest of the Big Land, with flurries for Lab City, the coldest temperature around -3, but Happy Valley, Goose Bay should stay in the single digits with a mix of sun and cloud and then either flurries or showers for Makovic, and a high near 5 degrees. So that's a look at the forecast, but I mentioned some snow. Well, I wanted to share an interesting weather-related story out of northern Sweden. Some scientists there are using a blanket not to stay warm, but to protect ice from the heat of the sun. Glaciers are melting rapidly all over the world, and the science gathered from this experiment might be able to help.
So glaciers are the best climate measurement meters on the planet. They show exactly how the climate is changing and also what you can do to protect the environment. It's porous on this side and a bit more hardcore on this side, and contains of rough wool that is not needed for making clothes, and it's very strong and durable, and it hinders the sun, the UV radiation, and it also isolates from warm air. So altogether we could registrate between 3.5 to 4 meters protection. If we would have come 1 month earlier in May, it was a very warm June, we would have been able to protect another meter. So maybe 4.5 to 5 meters of melting is possible to protect with this kind of efficient material.
This is still unfolding and we're working with the RCMP.
But why can't you say...
This is still unfolding and we're working with the RCMP.
Usually a pretty organized criminal gang actually will be behind ransomware. They put it in a form that you can't read anymore.
Chaos in the healthcare system.
But why won't Siobhan Cody call it an attack? We return to our top story just ahead.
Returning to our top story, the Deputy Premier refused to confirm or deny today whether the province's healthcare system is being held hostage by a ransomware attack.
The opposition pressed Siobhan Cody in the House. Reporters pressed her this afternoon, but she didn't budge. Cody says government's focus is on restoring services.
Once we are through this situation, very focused on the operational concerns that we have right now, and so we should be. Once we're through this, we'll certainly have a bigger opportunity to talk about what has transpired. But right now, we've engaged the proper expertise that is required, and we have brought in the authorities.
Why is it a problem to confirm or deny whether a cyber attack has taken place?
This is still unfolding, and we're working with the RCMP.
But why can't you say whether
this is still unfolding, and we're working with the RCMP. So I'm saying to you that we are working very diligently with all the expertise that is required. This has happened in other jurisdictions. We're following the protocols or requirements to bring operations back. We're very focused on patients, on the healthcare systems, and the requirements of same.
But one of the very basic questions that the opposition asked today, which you didn't answer, was, has a ransom demand been made?
We are working with the proper authorities and working with the experts that are required. As the Attorney General has pointed out, the RCMP have been engaged, and they are working through this issue.
But that's a yes or no question, and I didn't get
that
a
is
yes
not
or no
a yes or no question. This is a security question. And I'm telling you that we are working with the proper authorities and moving through this particular challenge, as has happened in other jurisdictions, and we're very focused on the operations of the requirements of the healthcare system because of this.
But why won't you answer that question?
This is a security issue. We have engaged the proper authorities.
Minister, you just said that this has happened in other jurisdictions. What has happened in other jurisdictions?
They have had other security challenges, and that's why we've brought in the RCMP. We've had challenges with our healthcare systems, as you know, and that's why we're very operationally, and I think the Minister of Health and Community Service has been very direct in telling people what has occurred, what they're doing about it. And that's what's really critical here. How do we ensure that we restore our services as quickly as we possibly can? We're working with our service provider, Bell, on this matter. We've brought in expertise that is required as well.
With regard to Bell, have they indicated to you that anyone else has been a victim, as the government has?
Not that I'm aware. But they are working very quickly and very directly with trying to restore services.
It is day 4 of major disruptions in the province's healthcare system because of a suspected cyber attack. Joining me now to talk more about this is computer security expert Jonathan Anderson. Still a lot of unknowns here, but it's a lot to get your head wrapped around. Can you demystify for us what's happening here?
Sure. So for one thing, I mean, we don't know for sure until information is released, and some information may not be released for quite some time, unfortunately. Certainly there's been reporting about maybe ransomware, and that would be consistent with what we're seeing. If it is that, then ransomware is software that breaks into your computer, so there'll be usually a pretty organized criminal gang actually will be behind ransomware. They get into a system, and then they take all your data and they encrypt it. They put it in a form that you can't read anymore, and then they will offer to sell you a key that you can use to decrypt that so you can have your data back. So there's kind of 2 levels. There's the first layer of ransomware where they can just encrypt your data, keep it away from you, and then there's a sort of second level, or double extortion people will call it, where they'll actually exfiltrate your data, take the data off of your systems and put it onto their systems, and then they might even threaten to publicize it on the internet or something. Not all gangs do that. Not all circumstances allow them to do that, depending on the provider and how tightly people are watching for large quantities of data going out. It may not be possible for them to do that. But those are kind of the 2 things that you have to be worried about with ransomware.
And we're talking about people's medical records here. So blood work you've had done, scans you've had done, pretty much your whole medical history.
If the gang was able to exfiltrate data, then it might be in their hands, but it might not. It might still be sitting where it originally was, just encrypted, put in a form that that the Newfoundland Centre for Health Information can't read until they either restore their backups or possibly pay a ransom.
So if there is a criminal gang behind this, where could they be from? Could it be like foreign interference? Could it be domestic? Do we have any sense of where this could be coming from?
So there are a lot of organized criminal groups around the world who conduct these sorts of activities. You know, I'm no expert on international law or extradition, but I know the US has managed to extradite a couple of people from Eastern European countries related to some previous ransomware attacks, and I have no idea who's behind this particular attack. I expect all of that will come out as the report eventually comes out. But there are, you know, organized criminals all around the world who are partaking in these activities.
And we found out today that the RCMP has launched a criminal investigation into this. So what does that tell you?
Well, obviously it's a very serious matter and it has to be taken seriously.
If you have this group that's behind this, what do they want?
Money. So ransomware is really a criminal endeavor, and it's about making money. And so they will demand payment, and the payment will be in the form typically of cryptocurrency. And as one of my PhD students said today, this is one of the dark side effects of cryptocurrency. It facilitates these kinds of payments. Certainly if you had to send money through the SWIFT network, it would be much harder to have a successful ransomware attack.
So what kind of amounts are we talking here? How much is usually demanded in this kind of situation?
Well, so I mean, I guess there's the demands and then what gets paid. Certainly there have been recent cases the last couple of years where organizations have publicly acknowledged paying millions of dollars in ransoms. You know, the demands may be higher. I believe there was a cyber insurance payout once of like 20 million, something like that. So it can be a large sum of money, but paying the ransom is not necessarily required. You know, the minister yesterday in his briefing talked about all the extensive backups that have been taken, and those are good words to hear. And so it can be possible to just restore systems without having to pay the ransom, but that depends on the particulars of how easy it is to restore systems and also which level of ransomware we're talking about.
And what is at stake here, would you say?
I mean, we all depend on the healthcare system, and it's a critical thing. Critical infrastructure, critical systems require critical kinds of protection. And so I think it's very important that we continue taking steps. And we have no reason to believe that there was anything that the Department of Health or NLCHI or anyone else did that particularly made them more vulnerable than any other organization. But this is important information, and it needs to be protected, and many steps are taken to protect it, but I'm sure there's also going to be lessons learned in the future as this report comes out.
Well, Professor Jonathan Anderson, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Well, CBC NL is kicking off the second season of Stuffed. Our 3 hosts are back for more food-loving adventures.
And this season, it's all about finding and foraging ingredients to make their own meals. So tonight, Farai Gwasira gets a lesson in veggies at Lester's Farm in St. John's.
It's Aoife.
Farai. And Columbus.
And we're 3 really good friends who really love to eat.
This season on Stuffed, we're trying something different. We're gonna go out and make a meal from food that we source from the environment around us.
Aoife is going cod digging.
Meanwhile, Columbus is gonna go into the woods to forage. And Farai over here is going to go pick some vegetables at the farm.
And at the end of it all, we're gonna come together and make a meal out of it.
Let's get stuffed!
Hi, we're here at Lester's Farm on Brookfield Road, and I'm here with Susan. She's gonna show me around, so let's go. So what are we gonna see first today?
So I'm going to take you into one of our greenhouses where we grow our cucumbers. Just because of our climate, we grow a lot of things like cucumbers, tomatoes, a lot of our herbs, our eggplants, most of our peppers are all inside. So we have some ready to go. So we're going to come on in and pick some. All right, so these are English cucumbers here. I personally like to eat the cucumbers raw with vinegar. It's just like a chip. But other people just like to slice them thinly and put them on your salads. How about you?
Like a chip?
Yeah, like a chip. A cucumber chip.
No.
Oh yeah. No, seriously, it's really good with vinegar. Perfect.
That was easy?
Easy peasy, yep. Because they're in a greenhouse, sometimes what we find, especially when it's so warm, sometimes it's better to keep them in plastic in your fridge. So if you're not going to eat them today, eat your cucumber chips today. Then keep them wrapped up in plastic, and then they'll last longer too. All right, so we're gonna pick some strawberries today. Okay. They just started coming on for the U-pick, so there's lots of red ones, there's orange ones too, so they're gonna be a little bitter, so stay away from those ones. Okay. And there's green ones, really not ripe, so don't pick those ones. We really do have the very best berries, or some of them at least, okay? So we wanna make sure that we are picking the nice red ones.
You talked about making cucumber chips. What do you like to do with strawberries? Don't say strawberry chips, please.
You can do that, I'm sure.
My God.
But no, my mom makes this delicious strawberry cheesecake, and it's so good. All right, so kale is very similar to the cucumbers, so we're picking the biggest leaves. I love to use it in a salad, but a lot of people love it in their smoothies because it's kind of like one of those superfoods. We're gonna look for the biggest leaves, so they're usually the outside ones at this point. And to put these, you just push them down to the ground and crack them off.
Oh, that sounds complicated.
You know how I talked to you about cucumber chips?
Yes.
You can make kale chips. No, for real.
Why are you making chips out of everything? Just eat chips.
Once this goes slack, which should happen very soon, reel up a little bit, and then right here, you're just gonna haul up and down like this, and say here, fishy, 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 fishy.
Okay, I'm sorry, man.
Well, if you have room for more, the team behind our Stuffed series has already uploaded all of the season's videos on our website.
And you can find that link on our website, cbc.ca/NL, or if you're feeling full, you can wait for next week to catch episode 2. Ife goes cod jigging with a couple that just started fishing themselves. Justin Trudeau is calling for a global price on pollution. He highlighted to world leaders gathered at the UN Climate Summit Canada's $20 per ton of emissions, which started in 2019 and is set to reach $170 by 2030.
Is exactly the kind of strong, clear price signal that investors in Canada and businesses in Canada will know that it's worthwhile to keep emissions down. It's worthwhile to innovate, and for people around the world, it's worthwhile to invest in Canada because we are serious about tackling climate change.
The Prime Minister spoke about his push to impose a domestic levy on emissions despite political opposition. Most of the federal carbon tax collected from Canadian consumers gets rebated back to them at tax time.
Well, Trudeau was asked today about flags on federal buildings. They've been lowered since the end of May following the discovery of unmarked graves at a former residential school. And that's raised questions about what will happen on Remembrance Day when the flag is traditionally lowered for military members who died in service.
There is an understanding of how important it is to be able to lower the flags on Remembrance Day to mark our veterans, to mark people including Indigenous peoples who've stepped up to fight for Canadian values and paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I am confident that the conversations with Indigenous leadership on making sure we are able to lower the flags once again on November 11th will come at the right solution.
Well, the Heritage Department says unless the Prime Minister decides to return the flag to full mast before Remembrance Day, it will remain at half-mast rather than raising and lowering again.
Some Afghans that Canada helped flee the Taliban are facing a challenging start to their new lives here. In the rush to escape, many arrived with incomplete immigration documents. CBC's Robin Miller explains that's creating some problems.
This property in Ottawa could become home for this family who recently escaped Afghanistan, but they're the lucky ones.
The challenges we have for our newcomer families are most landlords require a job letter to verify their income. But in this case, we don't have that.
Javed Sultani says sometimes larger deposits help convince landlords. However, not everyone can afford that. Since late August, about 370 refugees from Afghanistan have arrived in Ottawa. A small number of families have managed to secure housing, but there are still about 300 newcomers living in hotel rooms across the city. The local organization that's leading the resettlement effort says part of the problem is incomplete paperwork.
We took them out of Afghanistan so fast, and then, there are others who we are receiving from the cohort that the United States airlifted out. They don't have any Canadian papers. So, they arrive, and then not having the paperwork stalls a lot of other things.
Without those documents, accessing everything from employment, social assistance, schooling, health benefits, and housing can't happen. This group is working to help where they can. The Afghan Canadian Support Network was started by the local Afghan community, people who relate to what the refugees are facing.
And when I was talking to the kids, when I was interacting with the kids, I saw myself in them 20-some years ago. That was something that really hit home for me.
Canada has pledged to settle 40,000 Afghan refugees over the next several years, but most will likely come from countries bordering Afghanistan, giving immigration officials more time to sort out paperwork, removing at least one hurdle as they begin their new life in Canada. Robin Miller, CBC News, Ottawa.
Time for a look at the long range. So we're skipping ahead to Thursday now. You were talking about a bit of snow in the forecast.
Yeah, we flipped the page to November now, and actually most of us got away with not seeing snow through October, but that's certainly not the case now. Up through Labrador, already seeing some snow, and the risk of that making its way to the island as well. Let's take a look at the future tracker just to show you that right now. So this is Thursday morning. You can see this model is picking up on the potential probably in the higher elevations, but that risk that it'll likely make it to the surface as a rain-snow mix potentially Thursday morning. For parts of the Bayver Peninsula through the interior, and then eventually we could even see some of that through central, but the afternoon through Thursday should actually clear out quite nicely for most. Going to stay on the cold side of this across Labrador, so you are still looking at that potential for some flurries, certainly in the west and portions of the north as well. Even making it to southeastern Labrador as we get into the afternoon hours on Thursday. Things are going to stay unsettled over the next little bit, even into Friday. We could see the slight chance of some showers and or flurries lingering in the morning for the west coast, and then late day. Another area of low pressure looks like it's going to develop. Now, exactly where this tracks still has to be ironed out, but that development certainly looks possible. Either some showers or even some flurries in the mix for parts of the Avalon overnight Friday into Saturday. But again, something I'm certainly going to be watching. And then as we head into Saturday afternoon, or rather Saturday morning, the models again picking up on the potential for some snow for the west coast. So certainly going to have to watch that over the next couple of days. What does happen through the week likely won't accumulate too much, but that risk is certainly still there. Temperatures are going to start to dip as well. We're going to say goodbye to the double digits for a little while. 8 degrees in Corner Brook on Thursday, 5 in Gander, 9 in St. John's, and then those temperatures up across Labrador still into the single digits. 1-2 degrees. Lab City, you're on the cold side of that. Still hovering around -3 as your daytime high. As we get into Friday, temperature is going to dip even more, keeping that sun and cloud in there, but again, that risk of some showers in the morning for the west and coast as well as central. And then there's that rain snow icon I have in there for St. John's, with a high near 6 degrees on Friday. Taking a look at the long-range forecast, single-digit temperatures look like it'll be the story. Some showers on Saturday, looks like should clear out, or at least some sunny periods on Sunday at 7 degrees. Then for central Newfoundland, you're looking at that rain-snow mix on Saturday. Sunday looks nice at this point, 5 degrees. Similar forecast for western Newfoundland as far as the weekend goes. 3 to 4 degrees will be your daytime highs. That is a little bit below where you should be sitting, normally around 7 or 8 degrees this time of year. And then for eastern Labrador, right up until Friday, things look beautiful. And then Saturday, the potential for some flurries sticks around on Sunday as well. And then western Labrador, you're looking at 0 and -1. Had to share this photo. Beautiful day at Cape St. George's. Thank you to Jerome for that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Know exactly where that is, and if you drive around the right time of day, it's this beautiful emerald color in the water there.
Ooh, that's the best.
Yeah.
The coast, when you see that emerald water, just makes you feel like you're somewhere tropical.
Very nice. Yeah. Jerome, very nice.
Lovely. Thank you so much. All right, well, that's it for us tonight. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Yeah, and I hope Ashley calls up another nice afternoon like she did today.
Yes, tomorrow's looking good.
In the east, certainly will.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.